Merrick Shaw had been called to repair a wealthy woman's broken standing frame, not challenge the sentence she had lived under for 2 years. Odette Langley had survived a mountain road accident and been told that walking again was impossible. Yet the adaptive equipment repairman saw 3 things her reports never mentioned. The hip guides were installed on the wrong sides, a safety recall sticker had been removed, and the machine's sensor shut down whenever her left leg produced pressure. Merrick could not diagnose her, and he refused to promise a miracle. But the evidence he photographed would force an independent neurological reassessment, expose a failure hidden inside ordinary paperwork, and give Odette something more difficult than hope, the right to know what her body could actually do. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Merrick Shaw repaired machines people depended on. At 38, he serviced wheelchair lifts, powered chairs, hospital beds, stair climbers, and standing frames across western Massachusetts. He was also raising his 11-year-old son, Kit, alone. Their kitchen table carried equal numbers of homework pages and wiring diagrams. The service call came from Langley House, a stone estate above the river. Its owner, Odette Langley, had built a national interior design company before a mountain road crash damaged her lower spine. 2 years later, she used a graphite wheelchair and avoided interviews that turned her body into a lesson about courage. Her standing frame had failed 6 times in 1 month. Merrick arrived in a faded Navy service van and found Odette waiting in a bright rehabilitation room. She was 36, elegant, watchful, and tired of strangers speaking around her. "Fix the machine," she said. "Please don't tell me it will change my life." "I repair equipment," Merrick replied. "Your medical team handles the rest." That answer earned him permission to begin. The frame was designed to lift a seated user gradually while supporting the knees, hips, and chest. Its error history showed repeated overload at the left hip. The previous technician had replaced a motor. The fault returned. Merrick measured the frame before removing a screw. The right hip guide curved inward. The left guide curved outward. Small stamped letters beneath the padding showed they had been installed on opposite sides. That twisted the pelvis whenever the frame lifted. Odette watched his face. "What did you find?" "An assembly problem. I need to document it before I move anything." He photographed the brackets, serial plate, wiring loom, and sensor values. Beneath a strip of replacement foam, he found adhesive residue shaped like a recall label. The serial number belonged to a production batch recalled 18 months earlier because the pressure sensor could interpret voluntary muscle force as unsafe resistance and stop the lift. Odette's frame had never been returned. Merrick called the manufacturer from the room, with her permission. The company confirmed the recall but said the notice had gone to a rehabilitation supplier that later merged with another firm. The service record had been closed without proof of correction. No conspiracy, no dramatic villain, just a warning lost between companies, while one woman learned to distrust her own body. Odette looked toward the frame. Every time it stopped, they said my spasms were getting worse. Merrick kept his voice careful. "The machine cannot tell us what your nerves are doing. It can only tell us that its own reading may be wrong." He disabled the frame and attached a bright physical lockout tag. Odette's chief of staff objected because a foundation photographer was arriving the next day. Merrick refused to clear unsafe equipment for display. "Then what happens?" Odette asked. "The manufacturer replaces the recalled parts. Your physician decides whether reassessment makes sense, not me." She studied him as if honesty were a language she had almost forgotten. Kit called while Merrick completed the report. His school robotics project had lost a wheel. Merrick apologized for being late. Odette heard the boy remind his father to eat dinner. After the call, she asked why Merrick had become a medical equipment technician. His late wife had used a stair lift during cancer treatment. One night, a loose limit switch trapped it between floors. Merrick repaired it, then trained so no other family would wait helplessly for a stranger. Odette touched the blanket across her knees. "People keep telling me acceptance is strength." "It can be," Merrick said. "So can accurate information." The next morning, An independent rehabilitation physician reviewed his photographs. She ordered the frame preserved, requested the original scans, and scheduled new nerve conduction testing. Odette expected another confirmation of loss. Instead, the first test detected a faint, voluntary signal below her left knee. The signal did not mean Odette would walk. The physician said that twice before discussing anything else. Spinal injuries were complicated. Preserved pathways could support useful movement, pain, fatigue, or nothing predictable. The only responsible next step was careful evaluation. Odette appreciated the refusal to perform hope for her. New imaging showed her injury was incomplete. The original swelling had obscured small surviving pathways. Later examinations relied heavily on sessions interrupted by pain and the faulty standing frame. No single doctor had behaved recklessly. The system had allowed an equipment problem to become part of the medical story without anyone separating the two. The manufacturer replaced the sensors and brackets under independent supervision. Merrick verified the work but did not operate the frame with Odette inside it. Her therapist and physician controlled every trial. The first corrected session lasted 40 seconds. Odette stood supported, pale with effort, while Merrick observed from outside the therapy area. Her left quadriceps produced a visible contraction. She began to cry, not because she was walking, but because the machine did not accuse her body of failure. Rehabilitation began again. Progress was measured in small numbers: 3 supported minutes, a controlled shift of weight, 2 inches of knee extension. Some weeks brought nothing. One infection forced a month-long pause. Odette continued using her wheelchair and learned to see it as freedom rather than evidence against recovery. Merrick returned only for scheduled maintenance. He brought Kit once after the boy's robotics wheel failed again. Odette showed him a drawer of fabric samples, and Kit used a strip of textured vinyl to improve the robot's grip. The child did not ask whether she would walk. He asked whether her chair could turn faster than his robot. Odette trusted him immediately. The lost recall became a legal and professional issue. Odette could have used her wealth to destroy the supplier. Instead, she funded an independent audit of adaptive devices installed through the merged company. More than 60 machines required inspection. 11 had incomplete recall records. The supplier paid for corrections and created a tracking system that required user confirmation, not merely a closed office ticket. Its former service manager accepted responsibility for weak documentation without being turned into a monster. Odette's foundation canceled its glamorous campaign and redirected the budget toward free equipment audits for people who could not afford private technicians. Merrick was offered the program contract. He accepted only after Odette placed purchasing decisions under an independent director. He would not become the favored repairman who agreed with a wealthy client because he cared about her. She noticed the distinction. Their friendship grew in maintenance rooms and ordinary kitchens. Odette visited Merrick's modest workshop to understand how recall inspections worked. She wore tailored trousers, transferred independently to a workbench, and learned to identify a failing actuator by sound. Merrick learned that she hated being called inspirational and loved terrible detective novels. She learned he labeled leftovers with dates, but never remembered to replace the marker cap. 6 months after the corrected frame arrived, Odette took her first step between parallel bars. 2 therapists supported her. A physician watched. Merrick was not in the room. She sent him a photograph later. One shoe half a length ahead of the other. Braces visible. Wheelchair waiting behind her. He did not reply with congratulations. He wrote that the left foot placement looked deliberate. Odette laughed for the first time that day. Walking remained difficult and limited. Some mornings she could cross a room with forearm crutches. Other days pain kept her in bed. Her wheelchair remained part of her life. The truth was not a transformation from broken to whole. It was that she had always been whole, and now she had more choices. A year after Merrick's first service call, the audit program opened its 4th regional workshop. Technicians learned to inspect brackets, firmware, serial plates, pressure sensors, and the paper trail that followed each recall. Users were taught to request their own service records. The program belonged to an independent nonprofit, not to Odette's company or Merrick's shop. That separation gave them room to become something else. Odette asked Merrick to dinner after his service contract ended. He checked the date twice before answering. Kit selected his father's blue shirt and warned him not to discuss torque settings unless asked. Their first dinner was quiet. Odette arrived in her wheelchair because the restaurant had a long entrance ramp and she wanted energy left for dessert. Merrick did not glance at her crutches folded beside the chair. They spoke about fear. Odette admitted that the possibility of progress had frightened her more than certainty. Certainty required grief. Possibility required trying, failing, and being watched. Merrick understood. After his wife's death, he had made life reliable enough that nothing unexpected could enter without an appointment. They moved slowly. Odette never hired him privately again. Merrick never attended therapy unless invited as a friend. Kit became the person who reminded both adults that every serious conversation could wait until after pancakes. 2 years after the faulty frame was found, Odette addressed the annual equipment audit meeting. She crossed the short stage with braces and forearm crutches, then sat in her wheelchair to speak. No one treated sitting as defeat. Merrick watched from the back beside Kit. Odette did not tell the audience that one repairman made her walk. She told them a repairman noticed equipment evidence, respected the limits of his role, and insisted that the right experts look again. That distinction protected the truth. After the meeting, she found Merrick beside a display frame. "Everyone wants the dramatic version," she said. "Machines are dramatic enough when people skip the manual." She smiled and took his hand. At home that evening, Kit's robot rolled crookedly across the kitchen floor. Odette lowered herself into a chair while Merrick opened the chassis. The boy claimed the wheel had failed on purpose to bring the repairman and the wealthy woman into the same room. Merrick found a loose washer. "What did everyone miss?" Odette asked. "You tightened this one." Kit looked offended. Odette laughed until tears brightened her eyes. Later, she stood between the kitchen counter and Merrick's open hand. Her braces clicked softly. She took 3 careful steps. Then she sat back in her wheelchair because she was tired. Merrick kissed her forehead. There was no crowd, no miracle, and no promise that tomorrow would be easier. There was accurate information, hard rehabilitation, a child rebuilding a robot, and a woman whose future had become larger than one sentence. For Odette, that was more than enough.